We are Project Ease. My name is Robert. I am the project manager.
I'm Pierce Powell. I'm head of public relations.
I'm Tatiana Cheeves, and I'm the head programmer.
So we were all very excited to get back to school, but we got there and realized one thing when receiving our schedules. There were problems, and quite a few. Now, after seeing that, we talked to each other and we were wondering, is it only us? And so that's when we decided to ask other people questions.
Yeah, so we took to interviewing the rest of the student body after we all, just to make sure that it wasn't like an isolated problem within our group. And then upon interviewing like the rest of the student body at Lakewood High School, we found that there was others with problems even more significant than that of our own. Some students would have to actually have 6 conflicts on their schedules, meaning that they only had 2 classes, correct? So they were forced to sit in the office for just countless classes for up to like 3 weeks at the beginning of school, just with being deprived of their education pretty much.
These problems had a pretty wide range from having 2 classes scheduled for the same time. Some people had to happen like 4 times. So I was in a situation where instead of my 8 classes that I signed up for, I got 3. And that means I wouldn't have been able to graduate this year, which would have been a big problem.
So upon affirming that there were these problems all across the student body, we decided to talk to our guidance counselor and see if she was facing like similar problems. And it turned out that she had actually, like, because of all these problems, they were unavoidable. She was just stacked with workload for probably the first 6 weeks of our school, and she was just unable to do her actual job as being the counselor just because she was so swamped with fixing all of these pointless schedule fixes. Yeah.
So we thought an easy way to do this would be to take the people out and replace it with technology. So we decided to do EASE, Electronic Application-Based Scheduling Efficiently. This will be a multi-platform, it will be a website and an app that will allow students to put in information, and then it will save it to a database, which can then be received by those who need it.
Electronic scheduling is a lot more efficient than the system we currently use, which is just pen and paper. You write down what classes you want, you give it to the counselor, and then she has to put it into a master database on like an Excel file, and she has to write out, you know, every single class that you wanted and find a way that works. So there can be a lot of conflicts, and you can have problems where they don't know what class to put you in, but they need you in a class, so they give you a class you might have already taken.
To put it in perspective, Lakewood is one of the smallest public schools in the state, I believe, and we have about 2,200 kids. Everyone having 8 classes, that means you're putting in almost 16,000 classes in, and if you make any mistakes, you have to go back and change it. And that's just a lot of typing for 1 or 2 people. And so we believe this is a much more efficient way of getting that across.
So there's a couple important features to our product. Student input allows a student to, use the app or the website, put in what classes they want, and then backup classes if they're like, okay, well, if I might not get this class, I'd like to have this class instead. Then the counselor can review those, give them the classes, and then in the master roster, it could highlight conflicts. Like, this student can't take this class and this class because they're during the same period. So they need to switch around the schedule, and then the student can be informed there was a conflict and the counselor fixed it. So if they look at that and they say, oh, I can't be in this new class, I've already taken this class, then they can go to the counselor and say, I see the conflict, I know the change you made, and I'd like to fix it because I don't like this new change. So the integrated development environment we used was OutSystems. OutSystem is used widely by a lot of businesses. It uses multiple languages. It uses CSS, HTML, JavaScript. It uses SQL. It allows you to create your own database or use their database system, both of which are based in SQL. And it also has its own IDE native complex visual language. So it's similar to block-based, but it's a lot more complex in the way that it works, and it allows you to really get into like the details and make an app that's like very complex, but it's a little easier to work with.
So we started this project in August when we got back to school, when we noticed all of these problems. Because this wasn't, I believe it was somewhere around 60% of all of the seniors had at least one conflict. It's at least one. So I mean, there were some people that got really bad schedules. We found out about 25% of the entire population that we surveyed at our school had conflicts, which that's a good amount. I mean, that's hundreds of kids that have these problems because the counselors weren't allowed to do anything about it. And so we didn't actually get into anything until later, when we could actually ask people and go to the counselor and see what was happening, because she was finally free around mid-September. We started in early August. She was doing work with students that couldn't actually go to class because they had to wait for her to be able to fix their schedule. It was just. Then later in November, we were actually able to start programming. That was when we had completed everything. We had all of our product surveys done. We had a good idea. We had a few people that were able to tell us whether or not they would like that idea. So we had about 5 testers that were like helping us out on the way there. Right now, we just got done optimizing what we have. We still have plenty more to do because we aren't done yet. But right now we have, the website is almost functional. The app is downloadable on both iOS and Android. So we got just about everything covered. And right now we're just working on getting it out there, seeing how people like it, whether or not they're having any problems. So, going back.
So this is an example of the website. This is the administrative view. So this is what the counselor would see. Those are some student classes, and there's the Excel view. So you can see there's 4 students that currently have classes uploaded.
One of the main things that the counselor said was she wanted to make sure that all of the data that we had got put into an Excel sheet, because that is where the counselors and the teachers get most of their information from, especially when looking at kids, is from Excel. So that was a very big thing that the counselor wanted on her side was.
Especially because that's the number one thing that takes up her time, is because we have no better system, she's forced to enter literally everything just by typing it, name, class, etc. So it's really quite a dated system.
So this would be the student view. You can see this student, Keith Hudson, started to put in his classes. In the future, we'd like to make this a drop-down menu that lists the class by subject, so it's easier to find instead of just typing it out. And then after he's put in his classes, this is the administrative view again. You can see that he's been added to the classes, and when the administrator clicks export to Excel, he's been added into the Excel file.
So one of the biggest problems we actually had while making this is we switched what we were using to actually make all of this stuff 4 times. So we went from Android Studio to Eclipse to Visual Studios, and then we finally found OutSystems, which worked the best for us. We were able to do everything with each other without having multiple copies, because our school won't let us transfer the files to each other so we can see them at the same time. And
Yeah.
OutSystems let us do that. So it was a very good way for us to actually be able to work together.
And then, so with changing demands, that's referring to, we originally wanted to make everything just an app-based because we figured that would be easier. But after performing student interviews, and Lakewood happens to be in a lower income area, and we figured not everyone would have access to a smartphone. However, the school could provide a computer to use, but through changing the demands and having both, the people that don't have smartphones could still get their schedule changed, but it won't form a line of everyone waiting to use their computer, so it maximizes the efficiency.
It's also just different things that our counselor ended up wanting, like the Excel thing. We didn't go into this planning that. That was not one of the first things that we had imagined, and figuring out how to do that took a little bit of time.
Okay, so the plans for the future is we're definitely planning on just drilling usability tests nonstop, because we want as much feedback as we can, because with schedules it's kind of, once things are final, it's finalized, there's not really going back once it's implemented into a school district. And then also the usability tests, student feedback, that's everything. So if the student and the faculty aren't both happy, then what's the point?
Another thing that we want to figure out is, one of the main things that she will be doing the most of in Excel is finding problems, if there are any, and trying to fix them, because we don't have access to the master, or we have access to the master roster, but we aren't allowed to. Once they input the classes, if there are any problems, she has to go in and change them still. So this will minimize them, but we can't be perfectly efficient, unfortunately. And so making that as easy as possible to catch any mistakes is something that I would like to do. So like automatically highlighting if there's a problem. Just for space and organization wise, automatically shrinking the cells. Just small stuff like that to make it easier for anyone who needs to actually use Excel.
And then ease is all about efficiency, just so that way we can get students into their classes when they're actually supposed to be learning. So we plan on implementing a faculty contact section. So you'd actually be able to get in contact, schedule meetings with the guidance counselor all through the app. So you have access to your schedule, you can see the conflicts, your counselor can see the conflicts, and you guys can work together through the app to schedule a meeting to resolve them.
Another thing we would like to implement with that is, like, let's say you need to meet a teacher after school. We plan on having this based on the schools. So we would like the teacher's information to be in there. And then once you have your classes, you're able to contact your teachers through the app or the website.
And that's it.
I will tell you, I'm really impressed with your brilliance. You guys really know your stuff. You guys are very articulate. You deliver very well. Your presentation, we need to have it to the level of which you present it, okay?
Okay.
Did you guys, have you referenced the presentation
Yes.
that I put out there?
Yes.
Okay, we really need to see
Okay.
pictures, okay? Really, you guys, you've nailed your problem. You have been so clear about your vision and everything, but your presentation here is not reflecting the brilliance of what you've developed, okay? And so we want to see that because you need to shine what you've pulled together. And so if you need to use mentors to help you bring that on to your PowerPoint presentation, then let's do it,
Okay.
right?